Okay. Okay, we're ready.
Muy bien, estamos listos.
Oui, bonjour à tous. Aujourd'hui est un jour spécial et important qui m'accueillera sûrement, Madame la Présidente, à l'activité académique de cette faculté de droit, comme la vocation de ces étudiants de cours de justice pénale internationale. Merci beaucoup à la faculté, Madame Doyen, Monsieur le directeur, juriste, docteur professeur, qui nous accompagnement, professeur Navarro, de la barre de journaliste du tribunal de pénal, et Monsieur le sénateur Francisco Chaguán, président de la Commission des relations internationales, affaires étrangères et des droits humains du Sénat pour la présence. Nous avons la chance de voir la présence de la Madame la Présidente de l'Association des avocats de la Cour pénale internationale, ICCBA, Madame Marie-Hélène Proul, et Monsieur Dominique Kennedy, secrétaire exécutif de la même association. Ils nous diront que c'est la Cour pénale internationale, c'est dont elle traite, quels sont les principaux points et la jurisprudence, et sa jurisprudence. Ainsi comme les avocats du GRULAC, Grupo latino-américain, pourront choisir de travailler dans le système et sur que l'étudiant puisse, ayant possible la spécialité, devrait se concentrer. Et notre nom, Madame la Présidente, à tous, je vous remercie et vous donne la parole une minute. Changing in English. Good morning, everyone. Today is a special and important day that will surely mark both the academic activity of this law faculty and the vocation of our students in the course of international criminal justice. Thank you very much to the faculty, Madame Dean, our Mr. Director, Professor Claudio Oliva is arriving here currently. Many thanks, Professor. Many thanks again to Professor Navarro, President of the Board of the Journalists of the Courts, and our Senator, Mr. Francisco Chaguán, President of the Committee of International Relations and Human Rights of the Chilean Senate, all for their presence. We are fortunate, Madam President, to have your presence and the presence of Mr. Dominic Kennedy today. And we are sure that our conversation today about the ICC, ICCBA, in specific the themes of issues related with similar like that, the main penalties, jurisprudence, and organizations really will be a very interesting panel today. Also, how GRULAC, Latin American group of lawyers, can choose to work in the system and what students wishing to pursue the specialty should focus on. On behalf of all of us, Madame la Présidente, Mr. Kennedy, I thank you and immediately give you the mic, and again, I appreciate so much your patience for this some minutes delay. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Juan Carlos, for this kind introduction. I will try to, I'm trying to share my screen, but I need to put it full screen. There you go. Yes, thank you, Dom. I'm very honored to be speaking with you today to such a distinguished audience. I need to apologize first for not being able to address you in Spanish. I really wish I could. I learned it somewhat in my 20s, but forgot everything, and I cannot say more than hola and gracias, unfortunately. I had the chance of visiting your beautiful country 20 years ago when I could still speak, and I certainly hope that I can be there again one of these days. Today, I will basically just give you a small introduction on the ICCBA and the International Criminal Court and the work that we do here in The Hague. And I think this is a very good timing to be discussing these issues with Chilean lawyers, because the ICC has recently been very active in trying to recruit more Latin American lawyers into the list of counsel. And this is a goal that we share wholeheartedly. So who is the ICCBA, the ICC Bar Association? Well, we're an organization that was established in 2016 as the only association of lawyers counsel allowed to work at the ICC. We advocate on behalf of our members. We provide professional trainings, confidential ethics, advice, and opinion. And we also establish relationship with national and regional bar associations. This is a legal community that gathers people from all over the world. We're very lucky to be present in over 70 countries, and we're very proud of our diversity. It's a bigger organization. I am, of course, as Juan Carlos said, the president of the organization, but with me, there's an executive council, which is currently formed of 15 members, but will soon be reduced to 9 at the next General Assembly. I work with the executive director, Dominic Kennedy, without whom none of this would be possible. And we have a lot of working groups to work on different issues of interest to our members, such as we currently have a working group working on harassment issues and the reform of the Code of Ethics. There's another one working on ecocide. So our working groups are quite diverse and reflect the interests and the concerns of members and of the legal community here in The Hague. We also have a number of focal points. Mr. Manriquez is one of our focal points, of course, for Latin America and the Caribbean. We also have others for all of the regions represented at the ICC, and some for discrete issues such as gender-based violence, diversity and gender equality, and so on. Then we have a number of committees: Defense Committee, which aims at defending the interest of Defense Counsel; Victims Committee, doing the same for the victims' legal representative; Counsel Support Staff; Professional Standards, Legal Advisory; Training, which of course you might have heard, because this training committee provides a wide range of trainings at wide for the community here in The Hague, but also worldwide. Finally, we have an amicus committee and a membership committee. The committees are composed of voluntary members who decide to run at the General Assembly to be elected on these committees, and they all have a mandate of 1 year. We have 3 types of membership. The full membership is reserved for counsel who have been admitted to the list of counsel of the ICC. And I will come back to what it takes to be admitted on this list a little bit later. We also have associate memberships for those who are maybe a bit earlier in their career and who are accepted on the list of assistants to counsel at the ICC, or who are members of legal teams. And finally, affiliate membership is wider and can comprise of any individuals who has an interest in international criminal law or the International Criminal Court. As I was saying, our members come over 70 countries across the world. They are lawyers with not only experience at the international level before the international courts, but also domestic lawyers with their own sets of practices and experience. There's a lot of academics, a lot of students, and young professionals. We are roughly 375 members at the moment, and it's a number that has been growing steadily in the last few months. So it's a really vibrant and up and coming community. We have the possibility of establishing affiliations with different organizations such as bar associations, universities, and such. These affiliations serve to establish a privileged relationship between the ICCBA and the local organization. We can organize joint training or events. For example, our trainings, the ICCBA trainings, can be recognized as continuing legal education by national bars who require that their members follow that. It can also serve to share expert knowledge and, of course, promote the highest standard of professional ethics. What the ICCBA unfortunately does not do is to provide jobs at the ICC. This is not something that we are able to do. But by becoming a member of the ICCBA, lawyers can have more interactions with practitioners in The Hague, be more exposed to the work of the ICC, which can then hopefully lead to more possibilities. I have to say, when I talk about jobs at the ICC, I have to specify that we are very much external. We're not staff of the ICC. Because we are independent counsel. Those who want to have a job at the ICC and be a staff member at the ICC should look into the ICC website, where there's a page with vacancy announcements. Now, the International Criminal Court, of course, you probably know, was established by the Rome Statute in 1998 and became operational in 2002. So it's just over 20 years now. The court investigates and tries individuals charged with genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and aggression. There's 123 states that have ratified the statute. There are rumors that there might be one or two more soon following the ranks of the others, because the statute is going to celebrate 25 years on the 17th of July, and I think they have some events and some announcements prepared for that day. The court has 18 permanent judges from all of the regions of the world. They are elected every 3 years on a rolling basis, 6 at a time, by the Assembly of States Parties. The next election of judges will take place in December in New York. There's also 3 principals. The president, who's, of course, a judge of the appeals chamber. The current president is Judge Peter Hofmanski. He's from Poland. The prosecutor, who surely you know because he is very, very well known across the world, Mr. Karim Khan. And finally, the registrar is the very first principal hailing from Latin America. He's Ecuadorian. His name is Osvaldo Zavala Giler, and he was just elected earlier this year, so for a term of 5 years. Finally, external teams. This is very much where the ICCBA lies. External teams are referred to teams representing the defense and the legal representative of victims. And this is what the ICCBA, where our operations are, let's say where our members are. I should say that the defense and the victims are assisted in their work, or can be assisted in their work, by the work of the Office of Public Counsel for the Defense and Office for Public Counsel for Victims, which are internal to the registry, but operate independently. You have here some numbers about the numbers of situations and arrest warrants and etc. These numbers move constantly because we have a very active prosecutor. For example, the number of arrest warrants issued, those are only the ones that we know about, but we can speculate that some arrest warrants are still under seal, and we're not sure of how many these are. But just to give you an idea of the current cases at the trial stage right now, there are 3 cases out of the Central African Republic, 1 case stemming out of the Darfur events of about 20 years ago, and there's 1 case out of Mali, which has just concluded, and we are awaiting judgment. Now, to something that might interest you in a more specific way. Admission to the list of counsel. So what do you need to be admitted to practice law, before the ICC? You need 10 years of experience in criminal proceedings. You need to be a barred lawyer in your domestic jurisdiction, of course, and 10 years of experience. You should be fluent in French or in English, because these languages are the working languages of the court. And you can be able to prove a record of high standing required of the profession. That means no criminal convictions, no disciplinary actions. It seems a lot. It's actually not terribly complicated. It's simply a matter of filling forms. It's a bit administrative, and it takes a bit of time before the request is processed, but it's a fairly straightforward process. Now, if you don't quite have the 10 years of professional experience, you can be admitted to the list of assistant to counsel. For that, you only need 5 years of professional experience and specific competence in international or criminal law and procedure. This is, as I said, for people who are a bit more early career. I don't want to say that these people are not important, because quite the contrary, legal assistants in defense teams and in victims teams are absolutely essential to the inner working of the teams and to an effective defense. There are other possibilities of getting engaged in a case at the ICC without admission to either of these lists. For people who are really in early career, recent law graduates, for example, or recent barred lawyers, you can be hired in a case as a case manager, for example. There are evidence reviewers, and of course there are internships, although unfortunately they are not paid. There's not a lot of Latin American lawyers at the moment at the ICC, and that is very regrettable. Reason being that in defense and in victims external teams, we do not get any assistance to relocation. So at the moment, people joining these teams have to basically pay for the trip themselves. This might change after the next ASP, but it remains to be seen. This being said, while there's not a lot of Latin American lawyers at the moment, it is to be expected that this might change soon. Just last week, a chamber of the ICC has granted a request to reopen the investigation into the Venezuelan situation, which could lead to warrants of arrest, etc. And of course, the court is about to open a country office in Venezuela, which means that I think Spanish speakers will be in high demand shortly. As I was saying, for the admission to the list of counsel or of assistants, excuse me, there is a procedure to follow. You have to submit your application to the email address that is indicated here. You can find the form and all relevant information on the on the website of the court, excuse me. I think this is pretty much what I wanted to say with you today. I'm happy to take any questions if you have any, or if anything is unclear. Dominic can also assist you with any more technical issues. I just want to thank you again for the attention and for the kind invitation to address you today. We are hopeful that with this short presentation, we have piqued your curiosity in a way that will make you want to apply for the list of counsel or the list of assistants, and hopefully become members of the ICCBA and join our legal community. Thank you very much.
Continuamos entonces con las preguntas. El diálogo es abierto. Tenemos la traducción automática, de tal manera que nuestros invitados nos escuchan en inglés, así que lo que ustedes quieran hacer queda abierto. We are talking about continue. Our attendees can make some questions to our speakers, and immediately we can talk about the different issues that Madame la Présidente exposed minutes ago. Then the word is you. To you. Let me just a second. Let me just a second.
Ciertamente, los países countries who are working
del principio de la
based
colaboración y la
on
continuidad.
collaboration
Con
in general,
la Corte Penal Internacional.
specifically with
Vemos con
the
buenos
International
ojos
Criminal Court.
que
We are
hoy
very
día se
happy
estén
that
iniciando
nowadays
acciones
you are
respecto,
starting
por
some
ejemplo, de
specific
la
actions
participación
on
de
the
Rusia a Ucrania.
invasion of Russia against Ukraine, for example. And at the same time, this allows us to make more visible the fact that the jurisprudence of the ICC and action is not only focused in third world countries or countries who are geopolitically located in some specific areas of the planet. You're working everywhere, for example, in Russia. And in this context, what kind of progress are you planning on these particular actions by the ICC against the Russian situation, and also the different actions that you are going to take against the Venezuelan dictatorship? You are actually, well, the professor right here has acknowledged that he's been one who has talked about the violation of human rights and the displacement of people, Venezuelan people. So what are you foreseeing for this particular situation?
Thank you very much for the question. That's a very interesting and rich question. I would say, so there's two things that I would like to start with. First of all, as the Bar Association, we have a very limited ability to influence what the prosecutor himself is undertaking as his investigative actions and next cases. We, by nature, are more in a reaction. We're going to have more of a reactionary action to whatever he's bringing. This being said, I see a lot of potential for us as the Bar Association because either with Russian cases or with Venezuelan cases, as you said, it's going to get us completely out of the normal, if I may say so, the normal areas of actions of the court. So far, all cases at the court have come out of African countries. With Russian cases, it is very likely that the court will require competent, highly qualified Russian-speaking or Ukrainian-speaking counsel to represent defense and victims. And there's very few of our members at the moment who fit that bill. And so when these new people are going to come and join the legal community and the ICC in their capacity, the ICCBA, I think, will have a defining role in trying to bring them up to speed, to bring support as much as we can, to train and also to do some outreach because, of course, I mean, I'm speaking still about Russia here, but there is going to be a real public stigma to be acting as a defense counsel in these cases. And our Bar Association very much wants to represent the interest of defense counsel as much as victims counsel to just do their job and perform their mandate in a serene manner. So that's how I think we can be useful in those new situations. Similarly, for Venezuela, of course, as I said, very few Spanish speakers are operating at the ICC at the moment in external teams. So that will also be a real good opportunity to widen our horizons and provide training and support the new lawyers who will for sure be admitted to practice in these situations.
For the amazing work you do. Congratulations to the bar as well, to the Bar Association, and also the Chilean lawyers who are part of this bar. Congratulations, Juan Carlos Manriquez. It's an honor to have you here, and it's an honor that you are an active member of this community. Thank you so much. And we are just a humble worker of law, so don't worry. Thank you so much. And well, Mr. Oliva, the director of a school, wants to take the floor, specifically regarding student training and counselors training as well. Well, afternoon. I think it's you are in Europe, right? So I think it's past noon over there. And well, I'd like to start by saying thanks to the president, to the executive director of the International Criminal Court Bar Association for the great opportunity that you're giving us to being able to listen to you, to talk to you. And once again, my gratefulness to Juan Carlos for arranging all of this activity. Well, first of all, I'd like to mention that it's quite obvious that nowadays we live in a world in which organization, international cooperation, it's more important. There are different problems that go beyond your competence, but we have, for example, the pandemic or global warming. All of these things are obvious, but at the same time, it's very important to address different criminal issues. And I think it's also important to talk about the Rome Statute and the formation of the International Criminal Court, which are a milestone of our history, because we have the possibility to have international criminal justice for those specific crimes. And I'd like to mention also that I keep listening to something. The court is usually criticized for being too focused on Africa, but I think we have an answer to that, and probably because that's because that particular continent needed that particular action. And nowadays I have a pin right here. You cannot see it, but I have a pin with me supporting the Ukrainian cause. And as many people here, hopefully we can find a solution to that particular conflict, and hopefully we can prosecute Vladimir Putin. But aside from all of that, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. First, about the different interventions of the court of some specific events that have happened in Africa. Do you think this is going to contribute to improve the quality of life of people there and to improve the political institutions of those countries? And the second question, we have students here, and that's very, very important to us, so that we can have more international work, international students as well. And so what sort of specific competence you think is necessary for the counselors and the lawyers from Latin American countries specifically, so that they can actually be part of the ICC or the ICCBA? Once again, thank you so much for the work you do, and we really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much for the kind words and for these very interesting questions once again. Your first questions about the cases in the African continent and whether the action of the court can help the political situations. That's a very difficult question to ask, and to some extent, I feel unqualified to respond to it as just a counsel here at the ICC, and not as a political scientist, for example. I think different. All of these cases, when you think about the Uganda, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Central African Republic, Mali, all of these conflicts have very different root causes. And at the end of the day, what the ICC is offering is a simple trial of 1, 2, or maybe 3 individuals, and that's it. I think justice is important. I don't want to undermine that at all. I believe absolutely in the judicial process. But the judicial process alone cannot necessarily solve a lot of these root causes. So I think it needs to be, I think, justice is one step, I would say, in the process of getting it to a better place. And I think it also comes with, international politics and diplomacy and humanitarian assistance and truth and reconciliation commissions, for example. It can be very different from country to country depending on their situation and what they need as a whole. So if you're asking whether the ICC alone can really make an important difference, I'm not sure. It doesn't mean that it's not important. And actually, one of the things that the ICC has done in some countries is after a conviction, the victims are allowed to reparations. And the Trust Fund for Victims has been establishing projects, community projects, for example, across Mali, across the Congo, etc., to try and help the local populations get over the trauma of war and get some sort of sense of security and normalcy afterwards. And that definitely can make a difference in a small way. Now it's still early days because these reparations, the court hasn't put a lot in place yet. I think in the coming years, or actually in the coming few decades, we might see a little bit better how the court can actually have a positive impact, not only on peace and justice, but also on the living conditions in these countries. And I go now to your second questions about your student community and how they can acquire their requirements to work here. Well, first of all, you have an advantage that few of us currently here have. You speak Spanish. And that might be of a great advantage later on. Of course, I was speaking about the Venezuelan situation, which at the moment is the only active situation, be it that Colombia has been, I think, put on pause for the time being because they are dealing with it internally. But if the Venezuelan cases come out, you'll have a great advantage, a great asset by simply being native Spanish speakers. Aside from that, when we hire here at junior levels, whether for interns or for case managers or evidence reviewers, so that really the early career professionals, we are looking at an interest in international criminal law that can be manifested through either university classes or involvement in different organizations, attendance to conferences, things like that, or other internships, for example. We're also looking at a good, I would say mostly English, a good English, because a lot of these teams here will draft their filings and do their submissions in English. Some will work in French, fewer. English is a lot more common. So if you feel that you're not perfectly fluent in English, working on your language skills is definitely something I would advise. Aside from that, we're also looking for young professionals who can demonstrate that they are reliable, that they are motivated. And I speak for myself because I work in defense. We're also looking for people who are really committed to the work of the defense. And it's not everybody that is. Some people will really have their heart and their minds with the victims, and that's perfectly fine. And if that's what they want, they should, apply with victims teams. But in defense, we really look for people who have that fire in their belly and want to make a difference for that person who's undergoing trial.
Our professor Silvana Daros, PhD in legal proceedings, and she's here with us. And she made her PhD in Europe. She has several papers on that. We really love her. And thank you for your question, Professor. Well, thank you so much. First of all, greetings, congratulations for the amazing work you do. And there's no doubt that you are leaders in 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 the law or in the legal world, specifically regarding this difficult task. Aside from being a professor, I'm part of the Valparaiso lawyer association, which is the oldest lawyer association in the country. And we are very, very interested about ethics, about the ethical behavior or conduct of our lawyers, because sometimes we have some difficulties to apply these particular proceedings. So the specific question is, what have you done to regulate ethics? I saw during your presentation that you have a specific ethic committee, you have training programs about that. So I'd like to get to know a little bit more about that. What sort of proceedings do you have? What sort of regulations do you have, if you may, please?
Thank you very much for your question. And I have to say, I'm very impressed by your own career, which is incredibly awe-inducing. In terms of ethics, first of all, the court adopted the code of conduct for counsel a few years ago. I think it was in 2017. 2017. Since then, we've had the newest code of conduct. All counsel practicing before the court, all external counsel for victims and defense, are bound by this code. And of course, also by their domestic code, their domestic bar jurisdiction. This being said, the code is still, fairly young. It was adopted by the plenary of judges, I believe. It's a plenary of judges who adopt the code. It's currently undergoing review, and our association, the ICCBA, is being consulted as part of that review, and that's why we have a working group that is dedicated to seeing ways in which we can update the code and better formulate some of the rules and in favor of not only counsel but also their clients and the legal profession in general. What the ICCBA also does, well, as I said earlier, we have a professional standard committee, and this committee has in the past issued confidential advisory opinions to counsel who are requesting such advice. So this is what we have been doing. Now there's discussions around potentially doing a bit more if the court allows us to. It's also a bit of a negotiation with the registry here at the court. But ethics is, of course, incredibly important, especially in a place like the ICC where everybody comes from their own different legal traditions. And the code of ethics will vary substantially sometimes if you're an American attorney, if you're a Chilean attorney, if you're a French attorney. And so that's why it's so important to discuss these issues and stay up to date on the practice.
We also have here with us our more distinguished and our best students on criminal justice and international criminal justice. And they are very, very excited of this pilot program from this school, which is the first one in our country. And I know that probably you have some questions regarding issues such as the development of female lawyers and gender issues, and also some other topics related to the minimal requirements. I don't know, maybe. Well, first of all, I'm a student, and first of all, thank you so much for this presentation. And my question has to do with the people who are being prosecuted by the court. I mean, what have you done to keep prosecuting people? For example, the legal people.
I'm not sure I fully understand your question. I think you're asking me about the accused persons before the court. Well, I mean, there's been, I don't know how many individual accused there has been since the beginning here at the court, but there are currently, I think, 6 or 7 who are currently in detention. I'm personally a defense lawyer, so one of them is my client. I mean, as a defense counsel, like a defense counsel in any domestic jurisdiction, your job is to defend the rights of your client and to undermine as much as possible the evidence brought forward by the prosecutor. We do that, of course, considering all rules of ethics, but we do it with conviction and yeah, and of course the work at the ICC not only is in the courtroom, but we also have a lot of detention issues. So it's also about representation of clients vis-a-vis the registry of the court and the way that they are being treated and detained. As you might know, there's been very little, if at all, provisional release at the ICC. So although the court says that freedom is the rule and detention the exception, in fact, it operates the opposite. And so all of our clients, the accused, are being detained for several years in pretrial detention before there is eventually a conviction or sometimes an acquittal. I mean, in the case of Bemba, Blegude and Bagbo, these men were in detention several years before being acquitted. And unfortunately, the court has not accepted any responsibility in that sense and has not provided compensation. I don't know if this answers your question, but I would say, in a nutshell, being a criminal defense lawyer at the ICC is not fundamentally different from being a criminal defense lawyer in a domestic jurisdiction. It's just that normally we can only take one accused at a time, one client at a time, because these cases are massive. We're talking about several 100,000 pages of evidence for one case. The cases will last several years. So it's very much a very consuming task to be defending before the ICC.
But I think our students is thinking also in the issue related with the development about the corporate liability, criminal corporate liability inside the international criminal law framework, in specific the possibility to charge or to prosecute legal entities. If you can explain about it.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't understand the question at the beginning. I apologize for this. So at the moment, there is no such thing as corporate liability before the ICC. The ICC can only prosecute individuals. There's been some, academic papers and discussions over corporate liability, but I would say it's not in the cards for the time being.
Hello. First of all, thank you so much for your presentation. And I'd like to ask you something that I think you mentioned before regarding on the kind of mechanisms that the ICCBA has to solve or to have an influence in the final ruling, for example, in the final sentence, in the court final decision.
So maybe I did not express myself clearly. The ICCBA itself is a bar association. We're not getting involved in any specific case, except maybe when needed as an amicus. We can intervene as an amicus curiae, but that's about it. The ICCBA, is not representing anyone before the court. We couldn't do it without creating conflicts of interest for ourselves, because the association groups counsel for the defense and counsel for victims. So we need to have a neutral approach that every counsel can be proud of and can be represented by. This is why we don't do that as such. In our, so in my personal capacity, I am a defense for an accused here. So I can have an impact on the sentence and on the conviction in that regard when I'm acting in my capacity as counsel. But in my capacity as president of the ICCBA, no, we stay away from the actual substance of the cases.
To wrap up a little bit so that we don't take more time than that desired. Aside, apart from giving the floor to our students, I'd like to ask Dominic, if he may, Madam President, Dominic, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the challenges, the difficulties that you've had as a lawyer, as a law professional, when it comes to organizing lawyers from all over the world with different cultural background and different languages. I mean, what are the most important skills that someone like you should have?
Good morning, everybody. Juan Carlos, that's a tricky question to be answering. But yeah, it's a very interesting job dealing with the 370 members from every corner of the world. And I'd say one of the things is you've got to be diplomatic, you've got to be understanding of different cultures, different backgrounds, different legal jurisdictions. And yeah, try and serve the needs of everybody on an equal basis. Sometimes that gets difficult because obviously some members are more active than other members. But I think on the whole, between me and the Executive Council and all of the committees, we try to serve all of our members on an equal basis, whether they're full members, associate members, or student members, affiliate members, and try and provide equal services to all members. Yeah, not easy at times, but we try our best to do that.
Thank you so much. And let me add something. The cooperation agreements of the association with some specific organizations, Latin American organizations, are very interesting. And our universities has signed one. Other Chilean entities has signed others. And pretty soon we will summon different Latin American countries so that we can have these same conversations. So what can you tell us about the importance of these agreements for reciprocity, for the development of the association, and for the development of our legal culture in general?
Yep, perfect. So as you said, we've signed various affiliation agreements, including with Valparaiso University, which of course we're very pleased to have done. The agreements form the basis of mutual understanding, mutual knowledge sharing, to try and do training events together, outreach events together, provide information and support for applicants for the list of counsel, the list of assistants, or membership of the ICCBA. So it's really for mutual assistance between and to give some deeper understanding to these organizations and their members and be like a point of contact for both. Like Juan Carlos is the focal point, which puts South American affiliate organizations in contact primarily with the focal point, but then we'd be there to back up and assist in the organization of any events and promotion of both organizations. So it is something that we're quite proud that we've signed various agreements, and hopefully we will sign more in the future coming.
Well, hello, good morning. My name is Italo. I'm a last year student. And thank you so much for the opportunity for being here. And I'd like to ask you something regarding the Venezuelan case. I'd like to know what are the most important challenges to be solved in that particular case, and what are the possible sanctions that this case may have.
Thank you for the question. It's a difficult question for me to answer, again, because I am not on the prosecutor side. Right now, a lot of what's happening in that investigation is confidential. Only some landmark decisions have been publicized. For example, the one from last week that reopens the investigation. My understanding is that the Maduro government had basically tried to stop the investigation because they said that they were undertaking investigations themselves. And of course, the court works under the principle of complementarity, which means that if the state itself investigates and prosecutes or doesn't prosecute, but at least takes the matter seriously, then the ICC does not have jurisdiction. And so last week's decision basically decided that whatever steps the Maduro government has been taking, the ICC is not satisfied with, and that's why the investigation was allowed to continue. So in the early stages of an investigation, the prosecutor simply gathers evidence, both incriminating and exonerating, and tries to build a case. The investigation after some time should lead to a warrant of arrest. And when a warrant of arrest is issued, then we're looking for a person to arrest and to surrender to the court. And it's only at the moment of surrender that a proper case actually can start before the ICC. So potentially we're still a few years away from that in the Venezuelan situation. But honestly, it's all speculation, because we don't know exactly how advanced the prosecution is, who they would potentially arrest. I mean, just a few weeks ago, we saw pictures of the prosecutor, Karim Khan, shaking hands with Maduro. So it doesn't look like Mr. Maduro is necessarily himself the target of the investigation. But again, your guess is as good as mine, because we are not in that prosecutor's office to know exactly what is happening.
Well, lastly, Marilyn, one last question or reflection. During my visits to the court, I've been able to see a large number of female lawyers from all over the world, just like you, highly competent, passionate for their work, really dedicated to law. So it would be great that our female students or young female lawyers can get to know about the sacrifices, can get to know about what it means to be in the first line of worldwide law activity. So what sort of practices and advices can you give to our female students that, aside from all of the problems that they may have, they are still interested in law and hopefully becoming part of the International Criminal Court?
Thank you very much for that question. I'm really happy that you asked that question, because indeed, I think almost in every country, law students are majority women. And somehow along the way, they tend to disappear a little bit. And we don't see as many women necessarily in higher echelons in law firms and in the legal profession. And that's a real pity. For young women who are interested in this field, I would say, believe in yourself, create the networks that you need, just push the boundaries, because you can make it. And it's quite, and I remember being a young student and being inspired by the few female lawyers around me who were really successful. And also, if you have the opportunity to find this person who can act as a mentor to you, create these links. Don't hesitate to seek help as well, because nobody gets here in The Hague just on their own merit. We all need some help along the way, a little bit of luck, and also a lot of hard work. But it's doable, and even though the work-life balance is a constant challenge, it is feasible. And I speak for myself, but I am a mother of 2 little girls. And they understand that I have to work a lot, but I also tell them why it's important that I do, and I try to be a good model for them, and I try to carve my time in a way that makes me a good and efficient lawyer, but also a mother that is present for her children. So I think, aim high, because nothing will stop you except yourself, and so don't let that happen.
Bonsoir pour vous. Many thanks for your connection. Dominic, again, many thanks for your support constantly for our activities, and hope see you both soon, and really in a very short time. Many thanks again, and we are very proud and glad today. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.